Enlightenment from Famous Brands. Xiafeng. May 27, 2020. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Kayer. At the end of last fall, I bought a Zhang Shaoquan kitchen knife from a Chinese store in Vancouver. I cherished my new knife but failed to use it for a long time until I lost my old kitchen knife last month and finally began using it. It was easier and handier to use, and the good experience that it provided was like a cow eating lotus or removing hair from yak butter. A quality product is easy to use and works really well. The old kitchen knife was eventually found, but I never used it again until yesterday when I placed the Zhang Shaoquan in the sink after I had cut some meat and picked up the old kitchen knife unconsciously when I needed to cut some vegetables. The moment I held it in my hand, I found it to be quite unpleasant, and it was at that moment that I realized the value of the famous brand. 10 years ago, Xintao Celestial gave me a Philips razor, which is still good after I had used it for 10 years. Then, I accidentally lost a small holder while cleaning my hair half a year ago, so I had to buy a new razor at 100 Mile House. I bought one of the best ones in that store, but it did not work well and failed after only a month. I eventually found the small holder for my Philips, but although I wanted to use the new one, it did not work well, so I returned to using the Philips. The advantage of the Philips is that after charging it for slightly more than 10 minutes, it can be used for about 20 days. After 10 years, the battery is still intact. In addition, it feels comfortable in my hand, shaves cleanly, never pinches me or pulls any hairs out painfully, is fairly silent, and the original blade is still sharp. From these two examples, I have concluded that whether it is appliances, clothes, or other utensils, it is best to use quality brands if one can afford them. They might be more expensive, but in terms of long-term benefits, they are more cost-effective. Thus, I realized that people can also be divided into various grades. If you can get acquainted with, interact with, and cherish quality brand characters in your life, then your blessings will be great. Brand characters are like Zhang Shaoquan kitchen knives and Philips razors. They always make people feel comfortable and bring them wisdom, joy, safety, and tranquility, but never disturb them or make them feel uncomfortable. The benefits of getting along with brand characters are many. The greatest wealth in life is being able to meet and cherish one or several of them. I can be considered a blessed person because when I counted the treasures in my spiritual warehouse, I found several brand characters worth mentioning. 2 male secular friends are Shui Binyi and Lu Jinkai. 2 male Chanyuan Celestials are Tongtian Celestial and Chenxi Celestial, and 3 female brand Celestials are Huiying Celestial, Jingying Celestial, and Xiangrui Celestial. Their common features are that they all have rich personalities and first-class quality. They are picturesque like mountains and rivers or poems and paintings, high in taste and state, treat me sincerely and without deception, have never made me feel uncomfortable in the slightest degree, and have helped me a lot. We should cherish brand objects while using them and treat them with awe because they are expensive, and do the same with brand people. When facing the brand people whom we are lucky enough to have in our lives, we can only venerate and admire them in our hearts without the tiniest secular affection or lust. It is best to enjoy them as quietly as you would appreciate peerless landscape paintings. Never take them down and hang them up repeatedly. When several government websites described Lifachanuan as a cult several years ago, I, as its godfather, immediately broke off my relations with Shui Binyi and Lu Jinkai because I did not want to negatively impact the futures of my best friends. Sacrificing oneself and protecting brand friends is the best way to cherish and respect them. Brand objects have exquisite structures, high quality, and long service lives, making them easy to use. Brand characters have rich personalities and are transcendent, lofty, exquisite, sincere, selfless, and desireless beyond words. They are inexhaustible spiritual sources from which one can benefit for a lifetime, so they should only be admired without the slightest profane thoughts. Of course, there are still many brand characters who are worth cherishing in my life, most of whom are Chanyuan Celestials. I hope that my existence will be valuable and useful to my dear friends, and I pray that one day my relationships with Chanyuan Celestials will no longer be as ones between a tour guide and tourists, but rather those of close friends. It is not easy to meet brand characters. Not only does it require a gift from the greatest creator, but also the matching of one's own quality. It is even more difficult to become one. It takes a lifetime of self-cultivation and self-refinement to hope to accomplish that. A person who never meets a brand character throughout their life would not know that there are mountains beyond mountains, how high the sky is, or how lush the land can be. They would always use old kitchen knives without knowing that Janzioquins exist, but always think that all kitchen knives are the same. This is both pitiful and pathetic, just like a woman who has never experienced an extreme orgasm never knows what it is really like to be a woman. I hope that I can become like a Zhang Shaoquan kitchen knife or Phillips razor one day.
日常生活中能获得天启。
Revelations from Daily Life. Xiefeng. December 1st, 2020. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Kayer. Everything and all phenomena are the words of the greatest creator, and changing phenomena are the greatest creator speaking them. This is Zen, the book without words. Reading the book without words is talking to the greatest creator, and you can listen to the greatest creator's words in daily life without pursuing a lofty posture. I placed a bag of flour inside my refrigerator but not in the freezer section. When I reopened it a year later, I found that it had formed into lumps, which made it inedible. Revelation. Flour should be placed in a dry and ventilated place because it will rot and deteriorate in a damp place. People should change their homes frequently, and they should always ventilate their thoughts. Otherwise, over time, they will become stubborn. I kept some eggplants in my refrigerator, the temperature in which was kept between 0 degrees C and 4 degrees Celsius. Within a few days, they had turned black, were frozen, and tasted stale. Later, I left other ones at room temperature, and within a few days, they too had rotted. Revelation. Some vegetables cannot be kept too cold or too hot. Some people cannot be loved or hated. If you do not take a bath or change your clothes for a month, lice will appear. Revelation. As long as the conditions are right, species will find them. Viruses appear in the same way, so if humans do not adopt new ideas and new ways of living often, viruses will arrive. The coronavirus is telling people that they must think and live differently. Revelation. People who do not learn to perceive and accept new ideas and new lives often will invite parasitic thoughts to grow in their minds. When boiling mung beans, you will always encounter iron beans. Their shapes and colors are exactly the same as those of mung beans, but no matter how you cook them, they do not soften. In fact, the more you cook them, the harder they become. Revelation. Within groups of people, there will always be some special ones such as saints and rogue thieves who are born thusly and will not change. It is very cold here in the winter, so our window glasses are double layered and there are empty, insulating layers between them. In this way, the cold is blocked out. Revelation. Worries are cold. With 2 layers of selflessness, we can keep our worries out. I bought a water bamboo shoot 2 years ago and placed it in a glass vase and changed the water from time to time, but other than that, I never gave it any nutrient fertilizer. I would sometimes forget to change the water, and sometimes there was only a little bit of water left in the vase, but the bamboo has still been growing well. Revelation. In crowds, some people are like water bamboos. You do not need to establish special relationships with them, and you do not need to give them special care, but they will be happy as long as you smile at them or say hello to them occasionally. They need very little encouragement in order to maintain intimate relationships with you. They are the most content and sincere water bamboo-like people among us. My neighbor moved out of his old house and wanted to store a bunch of his stuff in my place for a while and stay with me for a few days. I said sure, I would love to have him. I told him that he could live with me until he found his new home, that he could stay with me for the whole winter and that I wanted nothing in return. I even told him that he could treat my home as his own. Was I being extraordinarily generous? In fact, it was not that I was being generous, but because he had been helping me for the past several years. Every winter, this neighbor had driven his snowplow to shovel snow for me, and he never charged me anything. So my door was open to him. Revelation. If you want others to open their doors to you, and if you want to be welcomed warmly, then you need to accumulate merits in advance. If you have merits, then the door will open to you, but if there are none, then the door will be closed. The same is true for heaven. If you have merits there, then you will be welcome, but if you do not, then you will not be. Last year, I bought 2 red leaf trees from a nursery in Vancouver and grew them in flower pots. They grew very well in the summer. One day, one of them blew over in the wind, but I had not noticed it until a few hours later. So I picked it up and replanted the baby tree, but sadly it died soon after. A few days ago, I accidentally overturned some crab cactus pots on a table and poured out the soil, so I hurriedly replanted it. As a result, its growth was unaffected and it even came into full bloom a few days later. Revelation. People are like plants. Sometimes, once you offend some, it is difficult to restore a good relationship with them, while if you offend others, it will not affect your good relationship with them at all.
天气越优秀者越美满。
Revelation, the more excellent, the happier. Xiafeng. December 4th, 2020. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Kayer. This year, one of my friends sent me 12 large peaches from Vancouver. The color of them were gorgeous, they tasted tender, crisp, and sweet, they were big and fragrant, and except for some that I had eaten as a child, I had not enjoyed such big and fragrant ones in many decades. Later, I bought several kinds of peaches from a local supermarket, but in terms of size, color, and sweetness, they could not compare with those big peaches from my friend. To satisfy my guests, I always serve a plate of fruit for breakfast. Grapes are a standing item, so I serve them every day of the year. In addition to ones grown locally in Canada, there are also grapes imported from the United States and Mexico. Since I buy and eat grapes often, I discovered their secret. The bigger the grape, the sweeter and more fragrant, the more delicious, fewer seeds, and less residue they have, and of course, the more expensive they will be. From the above revelations of peaches and grapes, I have found that for all things, including lives, the more excellent that they are in some ways, the better they will be in many ways. This revelation even applies to people. The more excellent that people are, the easier it becomes to deal with them, the less trouble they bring to others, the more reasonable they are, the more flexible and accommodating they are in dealing with affairs, the more they give and dedicate, the less they ask for, the more humble, positive, and optimistic they are, and the better the quality of their lives are. The more excellent that people are, the better one feels about getting along with them. On the other hand, the better that people can get along with them, the more excellent they are. A further enlightenment is that only the excellent can create beautiful environments and lives. Perfection creates perfection, but flaws create defects. From this revelation, we can understand that if a region or country is poor and backward, then too few outstanding people must reside within it. But if it is prosperous and its people live and work in peace, then many outstanding people must live within it. By the way, if someone always brings hope, beauty, happiness, and joy to people and excites and makes them ecstatic, then this person must be excellent and is a big fairy peach or a big, sweet, fragrant, and colorful grape. If, on the contrary, a person always brings worries, anxiety, troubles, confusion, pessimism, and unpleasantness, then they are, you guessed it,
老虎的背上不会长翅膀。
tigers will not grow wings on their backs. Xiafeng. March 6, 2021. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Kayer. Suppose that tigers had wings on their backs and they could give birth to more than 10 cubs at a time like pigs and dogs. What would result? I am afraid that many other animals would have little chance to survive.